Imagine this, a series that glued millions to their screens. Everyone thought it was just a piece of fiction, a gang of criminals with strange masks, a brilliant professor, and an impossible heist. But what if I told you there's a hidden reality behind this show? What if you knew that before Money Heist, there were robberies that happened exactly this way? Heists that brought the police to their knees and became the inspiration for the biggest series of the century. This isn't just a TV story anymore. This is crime, a reality that turned into legend. If you dare, come with me and let's take the mask off. Trust me, you're going to love this video. Imagine this, in the middle of an ordinary day in Buenos Aires. The streets are crowded, people are coming and going without a clue. Shopkeepers are calling out to customers, and life flows on as usual. No one knows that in just a few minutes, this calm city is about to witness one of the strangest crimes in modern history. January 13th, 2006. A group of unidentified men walk into the Rio Bank branch in the Acasuso district. Moments later, the sound of gunfire splits the air. 23 people are taken hostage. From the outside, everything looks like a typical hostage situation. Police line up around the bank, reporters shout in front of cameras, and families gather anxiously in the street. But behind this familiar scene, something was taking shape that no one expected. Inside the bank, everything was strangely calm. The hostages were allowed to call their families. One of them later said, "We thought these guys weren't dangerous. They even joked with us." In the middle of the chaos, pizzas were ordered. The police waiting outside for an opportunity to strike took this calm as a sign of weakness. But in reality, this calm was part of the plan. A calculated performance to buy time and distract the police. While all eyes were on the man negotiating with the police, in another corner of the bank, the real operation was underway. The second team had gone down to the basement where the safe deposit boxes were kept. Locks were broken one by one. Gold, diamonds, cash, and private assets, wealth that had been hidden for years in absolute security, were now being packed into bags and suitcases. Later, it was announced that more than 140 safe deposit boxes had been emptied. The take was estimated at between $19 and $20 million. The police, however, remained focused on the negotiations. They heard hostages calling out and saying, "We're fine, there's no danger." This made them apply less pressure. Even reporters exclaimed with excitement, "This one feels like a movie, but somehow it doesn't seem real." Little did they know, a real-life movie was unfolding right before their eyes. Hours passed. Crowds gathered in the streets. The media broadcast live updates. The police prepared their assault plan. And just when everyone thought the end was near, the hostages would be freed and the robbers arrested, something happened that no one could believe. The police raid began. Officers stormed inside. They shouted, gave orders. But silence. The bank was empty. No armed robbers, no shootout. Only the hostages, frightened but alive. And on a table, a short note remained. In neighborhoods without weapons, only money, not hatred. The police were stunned. How could the robbers disappear without a trace with all these officers, reporters, and the tight perimeter? The answer was right beneath their feet. Months earlier, the robbers had built a hidden tunnel. A tunnel that connected directly to the city's sewer network. At the end of the tunnel, inflatable boats were waiting. With bags full of money and jewels, they moved silently through the underground canals and surfaced kilometers away from the bank. While the police still believed they were inside, the thieves had long vanished to safety. This wasn't just a robbery. It was an engineering masterpiece, a psychological war, and a full-scale performance. No deadly gunfire, no bloodshed, no casualties. Just a flawless plan that the world would later call the heist of the century. But perhaps the strangest part was this. The thieves didn't fight the police with weapons. They played with their minds. The fake calm, the shared pizza, the hostages' phone calls. All were tools of deception. And when the curtain finally fell, the police were left with nothing but silence and humiliation. Years later, this story inspired movies, documentaries, and even series like Money Heist. Because here, in Buenos Aires, the line between reality and cinema was shattered. This wasn't just a robbery. It was a legend that lives on to this day. Imagine this. You're watching a TV series. You think it's all fiction, a story born in a writer's mind. But then, for a split second, you stop and ask yourself, what if this actually happened? The creator of Money Heist, Alex Pina, played exactly with that mental trick. He didn't want to craft a simple robbery story. He wanted something rooted in reality, something that as you watch, makes a voice inside you whisper, "This feels real." The first spark of inspiration came from a place few would expect. The heist of the century in Argentina, 2006. The very story you heard in the previous part. Thieves who fooled the police with smiles, pizza, and an underground tunnel, escaping with millions of dollars. Now just think of the professor's plan. The hostages kept calm, negotiations with police dragging on, while behind the scenes everything moved according to a much bigger scheme. That similarity was no accident. But that wasn't the only source of inspiration. A year earlier, in 2005, in the city of Fortaleza, Brazil, a group of thieves pulled off one of the largest robberies in history. They dug an 80-meter tunnel to reach the central bank. For weeks they worked quietly, posing as garden workers, silently carving through the earth, until one summer day they hauled out $70 million in cash. No gunfire, no blood, almost exactly like the professor's team infiltrating the heart of a bank, hidden in plain sight. These two robberies, Argentina and Brazil, were like puzzle pieces that came together to create Money Heist. On one side, psychological warfare with police and hostages. On the other, tunnels and underground escapes. The combination became the core of a story that shook the world. But Money Heist didn't rely only on reality. To become a legend, it needed something more. A symbol. The professor knew that if he was going to build an army, it had to be an army of image in mind. And that's where two key choices came in: the Salvador Dali mask and the red jumpsuit. Why Dali? Salvador Dali was a Spanish painter, wild, surreal, unapologetic. His face, with those long, exaggerated mustaches, was itself a symbol of defiance against the rigid frameworks of society. When that mask covered the team's faces, it carried a clear message. We are against the established order. We are against the system that controls everything. And the red jumpsuit? Red is the color of blood, of revolution, of flags raised in street uprisings. When one person wears red, it's just a color. But when dozens, hundreds stand together in the same red, it becomes a wave. The professor's team understood that to terrify the powerful, weapons weren't enough. They needed a shared image, a uniform for a nameless army. The Dali mask and the red jumpsuit were more than a disguise. They were psychological weapons. Hostages, staring at those masks, couldn't tell who was behind them. Their fear grew. Police, seeing crowds of people in the streets wearing the same mask, could no longer tell who was a criminal and who was a protester. The boundaries blurred. And that's how Money Heist rose from a simple series to a global phenomenon. Because every episode carried the weight of real events, and every symbol sent a clear message to anyone standing against the system. Now, when you look at the Dali mask, you might see just a strange face. But in truth, behind that mask lies a history of protest, of rebellion, of robberies that truly happened. And when you see the red jumpsuit, you're not just seeing a color. You're seeing the image of a nameless army, one that didn't stay only on the screen, but spilled into the real streets. Money Heist places a question before us all. Are we watching a TV series or a reflection of the world outside the screen?